How you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're going back to Ghost Rider because, oh man, we should all go back to Ghost Rider at some point in our life. See, this is the classic Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider. As a matter of fact, this is issue 35, which is the next issue after 34. That creepy little kids comic that I showcased previously. Now, like I said, Ghost Rider was a comic that was difficult for me to find back then. I don't know why. I guess, back then, and this was before the direct market. This was before comic book stores. There were comic book stores, but they weren't a thing then. It was just like a real oddity. Maybe there was like a collector's market or something like that. So most stores that sold comic books were like newspaper stores. Another oddity you don't see today anymore. Candy stores, stationery stores, 7-Elevens and things like that, sometimes in toy stores. And what you would get like a rack, and then once a month somebody would just come and fill up that rack. So the person who owned the store didn't particularly order anything. And like a representative, a vendor would come and fill up the rack. Kind of like a Coke vendor, if you buy a Coke route or something like that. So like a magazine vendor would show up with a truck and give you a stack of comic books. Now what they also did was they took the old comic books and they'd rip the cover off and said the cover was back to the publisher, and then that particular store would get a credit. So they, if they paid a quarter for a comic, say, and that didn't sell, they got credited for a quarter. So selling magazines and comic books was really, I think you just laid out the initial investment and that was it. You could go, provided you didn't get your comic stolen, it was just an income generator. But the publisher absorbed the losses. So that was the newsstand market. The direct market, which I refer to many times, is comic book stores. And comic book stores, they started to arise around this time, which I will say is about 1979. You would start to see the odd comic book store, and then like in the 80s and 90s there was one in every town. And what they did was they bought the comics, so no return. So if you saw this meant it came from like a newsstand. But if they were blank or just didn't have them all together, it was a comp. And then later on in the 90s, these returned for direct markets. So for a little while, they didn't have those barcodes, but that's besides the point. So if a comic book store, they would buy the comics, so they would purchase them for 25 cents or whatever, and then sell them for 50 or 60 cents. So, and they were distributed by Diamond Distributors for the most part. Diamond was really the only company that. So DC or Marvel would publish a comic, Diamond would buy them, and then Diamond would sell them to the comic book store, and then the comic book store would sell them to you. And there was a few comic book distributors, but they quickly went out of business, and Diamond became a legal monopoly because nobody really challenged it. I guess it wasn't lucrative enough of a business to challenge Diamond. And literally it last year, during the pandemic, was the only time that Diamond actually saw any challenges, and now there's a couple other comic book distributors setting up. But that's beyond the purview of this particular video. So, like I was saying, for whatever reason, the vendor who supplied the comics must have thought that Ghost Rider wasn't going to sell in my market, or they got too many returns. So it was hard to find Ghost Rider. Now, this particular comic, I remember reading at my friend Sean's house. I used to sleep over a lot. We were little kids, and I read this comic over and over again that particular night at Sean's house. And then I was looking for it, and I don't think I found it for, I'm not even joking, probably a year before I actually found it. And I mentioned this before, there was an old cigar shop, and it was next door to the supermarket that my parents would go food shopping. And I would go with them and go and just look through comics in the cigar shop, just because that was another guy who just never seemed to return comics. And it was just like overgrown pile of weeds of comics. Just some of them were beat up. And this is not my original. I actually rebought a copy because my original copy is probably my most reread comic of all time and is just destroyed, and it wouldn't photograph well. I should take a picture of it just for the hell of it. So this is a repurchased issue. This is actually the first time I'm opening the repurchased issue because I don't know how I ended up with 3 copies, but that's besides the point. So anyway, I went to the cigar shop and I would find it. And it's funny because on the pile of comics, you'd also have piles of Playboys and Hustlers. And this was before the internet, so that was the only way a young boy could actually see boobies was to go to Optimo and check. And then the guy would catch us and chase us out of the store. But I finally got this. Oh, man. So this is an interesting comic because it's called an inventory story. And what an inventory story is, Marvel or DC or whatever would hire a writer, an artist, to do a story. So a Ghost Rider story, a Superman story, a Batman story. And then they would just put it in a drawer and forget about it. And if for whatever reason the deadlines came and they were having trouble, I remember one artist, his house burnt down and it just caused turmoil in like a comic run. They had to do a couple of inventory stories. So if there's a problem with the publishing schedule, they would take this, the previously purchased, sometimes years earlier, out of the drawer and publish it. So it was kind of an interruption because the regular art team would be, interrupted by this, and it would be a different art team, a different writer, a different self-contained story. So the inventory stories couldn't go multi-issues. They were just there to give the regular comic a monthly break. So that's what this is. So this is a lovely cover. Look at this cover. Couldn't you imagine seeing this on a van next to a Frazetta poster or something like that, or like a Black Sabbath, or a Led Zeppelin cover? So this took me a long time to decipher this, but this is Budinsky and Rubenstein doing the cover. I love that cover. All that dark, and here's Ghost Rider. Okay, so with all my 7 minutes of talking, now I'm going to finally open the comic. Oh, this always cracks me up. Still only 35 cents, and we all know what that means. Next month it's going to 40 cents. Comic books kind of went up at a 5-cent increment until recently, and then they started jumping up way more. Look, it wants to close. Okay, number 35. This says volume 1, but when you look it up, it says volume 2 because the first volume was the Cowboy Ghost Rider. So this is 1979, April 1979. And remember, April was not the year it was published. I mean, April is not the month that it was published. April is the month that you return it. So let's look at the Ghost Rider. They don't even have the little story blurb. I guess that's over. Jim Starlin. And why is Jim Starlin a big deal? He created Thanos. And he has a lot to do with his story. He also did the Infinity Stones and all that stuff. So he's a big wig as far as the MCU, and he's currently going through lawsuits to get money that I think he rightfully owes. These movies are making $1 billion. Throw the guy some money. He's in his late 70s or 80s. Throw him some money. So this is Jim Starlin's story and layout. So that means he wrote the story and he did all the penciling work, and Steve Lealola did the inking, and Friends finished art. Why they put the Friends? Because this particular page, I think they just needed a splash page on the front. I think they were short one page, so nobody's credited with this. So they just said "and Friends." But look at that. Couldn't you imagine that? The Death Race. That, I don't know. It's a little stiff, but that is so cool. I could see a poster out of that. Look at that. That is just. I hate this word, but I'm actually going to use this word because nothing else is popping into my head. And keep in mind, I loathe this word. It's iconic. I'm so ashamed I use that word. Okay, so here's Johnny Storm. Oh, let's look at Tom Orzechowski lettering. Petra Goldberg. I remember, I'm embarrassed to admit that a couple of issues ago, a couple of showcases ago, I said I have no recollection of who this woman is, and I've since looked her up. And apparently she was a big colorist in this era of Marvel. She did hundreds of comics. But what threw me off is she had a different name, and this is her married name. So Petra G, and before that she was Petra. The name escapes me. So that's kind of why it threw me off. So here's Ghost Rider. He's thinking about that horrible, creepy kid from the last issues, and his mind ablaze with thoughts of vengeance and memories of death. See last issue. So I love these that give you guidance. It really does make you feel like there was this was a shared universe with logical consistency and stuff, something that's missing from comic books. So Roger Stern was the editor, who did a very solid run. He became the writer of the Avengers, the famous Masters of Evil, when they beat up Jarvis the Butler. So Roger Stern's a great writer in his own right. And Jim Shooter, I mean, I got to mention how much I love Jim Shooter. Every 3-ish videos on YouTube will revoke my license. And I've been doing some research on Jim Shooter. A lot of people hate him. He still have, like, I saw an interview with Ann Nocenti, who did a famous Daredevil run right after she had the unfortunate position of following up Frank Miller on Daredevil, but she held her own. And somebody mentioned Jim Shooter in an interview, and she just visibly shuddered. So he was a tyrant, but me as a little kid reading the comics were great, and that's all that matters. So here's Ghost Rider. Look at that. Could you imagine? That's oh man, that is just wonderful. I just love it. It's like a skull with mascara. So he's just thinking about another time and another place. So this is kind of what they have to do. They have to insert why the art is different, why this story is different. And in Ghost Rider's case, his powers are different. I said this before about Ghost Rider. His big problem was they came up with the concept of Ghost Rider, the flaming guy on a motorcycle who shoots fire, and they said go, but they never really thought about his powers, his reason they trod, everything like that. So just like the Hulk kind of, if you read the early Hulk, he was kind of like a villain who he was super smart when he transformed, but he was like sinister. He only transformed at night, and then he needed a laser beam to transform, and then once he stumbled onto the rage, it clicked and his power cemented, and that was it. Same with Ghost Rider. He transformed at night. Then he transformed when evil was nearby, and stuff like that. And this was his actual motorcycle. That now he could use his Hellfire to make a flaming motorcycle. So this is going back between issues 13 and 14, and this is issue 35. So 13, that's 23, so that's 2 years, but this is bi-monthly. So this is 4 years ago this story happened. Okay, 4 years ago, real time. Who knows? Comic book time. I explained that the comic book time is a slippery scale. So nice, sketchy. Loyola became famous. Steve Loyola, he inked the early issues of Excalibur too. I thought they were wonderful. So and that's another thing with inventory stories is they also use them to try out new talent. So I think Steve Loyola, however you pronounce the name, was new at the time. So here's Ghost Rider. Look at this, just wonderful 70s stuff. And this panel, oh man, is that a good panel? As I shift position in my seat, because I got a little excited, and that threw everything off. So here he is transforming. I love how his goggles actually transform with him. But look at that. That is just so cool. I'm changing. I'm being transformed into Ghost Rider. But that never happens unless somebody nearby is in trouble. So that was another thing. I forgot about that. So at first he transformed at night. Then he transformed when somebody was in trouble because they had to make him a hero. And now I think he only transforms when evil is nearby. So, Ghost Rider, I always said he never had that defining iconic story. Oh God, I can't believe I used the word iconic again twice in one video. Just look at this. Look at that. And here, so look, the storm comes rolling in. So here he is driving out in the desert. Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze was always out in the Southwest. That was his stomping ground. So I'm surprised he didn't have more team ups with the Hulk, because that was the Hulk. Because I guess the American dream of riding a motorcycle free in the desert, unfettered by the man, kind of works with Johnny Blaze. Plus, he kind of wanted to stay away from civilization. And, unless you're going to Alaska, this is the next best place. And same with the Hulk. He wanted to stay away from population centers. So it kind of works. But now here we have a storm rolling in. And storm, wait a minute. It may occasionally rain out here, but we don't... But it never had deluges like this in the desert, which is not true. I lived in Albuquerque for many years. They would actually have like a monsoon season, but these are comics written by New Yorkers. So boom, he just stops. I just love this, and you could tell he used some sort of reference. Getting back to this panel. I have two older brothers. And I remember at one point sitting at the kitchen table drawing this. I used to, try to freehand, when I mentioned that I drew comics a lot, I was in no way, shape, or form any good. I was just your kid who liked comics, and I would freehand draw stuff. So it was probably terrible. But I remember my two brothers sitting down and looking at this and telling me, "Oh, look at this. Ghost Rider rides a Harley because of this." And I'm not a motorcycle guy, so I got to take their words for it. They're both motorcycle guys. So anybody tell me, is this a Harley? How do you know? How do you not know? I don't know. I don't know motorcycles. So here, look at this page. I wish I could own this page. This is one of the few pages. If somebody said to me, well, name a page in a comic book, this would be the page. Look at that. Greetings, Ghost Rider. I'm looking forward to this meeting with great anticipation. I feel this is a meeting I shall long remember. Who? Who are you? Why, I am the one you've long sought after and secretly longed for. I am the reason you ride that absurd motorcycle. I am why you risk those insane stunts you perform. I am Death. So this is claiming to be Death. And keep in mind, Jim Starlin used the embodiment of death in the Thanos stories. So, and then of course Thanos means death. So this just must be like a theme in Starlin's life. I hope everything's okay for him because, kind of obsessed with the embodiment of death. So hope you're okay, Steve. Jim, why did I say Steve? Because I'm thinking about the inker. Look at this panel. So here they are just talking. And just look at that. I drew that panel over and over and over again as a kid. Just amazing. So this is one of the few times that the inventory story became, like, to me, the defining comic. And yes, I was a little confused as to why he was driving a different motorcycle, why his powers work different. But it didn't matter. This just overwhelmingly cool. And why this sat for 4 years. If I was an editor and this was handed to me as an inventory story, I'd be like, this is going in next month. But they were probably under contract with the current team, so I don't know. And look, it's just a puddle to remind you that it's raining. You don't even see. Just so cool. And, they're facing each other through this Death. Oh, that is just so cool. And he's looking me. So Death is saying there shall be 3 races. There shall be 3 prizes. He's serious. I really means to race me for my life. And you know what? I think he really is Death. I think this is really happening. And Ghost Rider didn't have that, like, Shakespearean way of talking or anything back then. So it was really just Johnny Blaze in a skull costume. Camelot, comic book. Comic book catalog number 6. I'm sorry, just got distracted. Here's the Johnson. I love all the gag stuff. We've seen this. This is just long lost stuff, whatever. So, because in our first game, it shall be a street race. 5 miles down this road, a lone cyclist waits us. His name is Richard Petrello. He is our destination and our prize. If you reach him first, he lives. And if you get there first, he dies. I kind of figured that. So boom, they take off so fast, and I guess Death's helmet falls off. I didn't see a helmet on his motorcycle, but who cares? It's just cool. It just shows you the speed and urgency. So this poor guy is just sitting there looking at his motorcycle 5 miles down the road. So he's like, a couple bikers drag racing. There must be nuts to be speeding in this downpour. So he's like, all right, cool. They're bikers. I'm a biker. The code of the road, man. The code of the road. They're going to come and they're going to help me. So, he's waving, and oh my God, their heads. So he's starting to realize things are screamed, and then Ghost Rider, whatever, and then Death reaches fourth, and Death Rider touches him, and he just dies. Hey man, what's going on here? What's with the skulls? Are you some types of new Hell's Angels? I feel funny. What did you do to me? New goodies for a new year. We've seen this ad a few times. Eat Whoppers, ride your bike, and look at that panel. Oh my God, that is such a great panel. Look at that. Ghost Rider is just witnessing as this guy just deteriorates and turns into a freaking skull. Why? because he just wanted, because he got into death's way. That's why. You know, no longer is death just this neutral, you know, in Dungeons and Dragons, death was true neutral. You know, it came to everybody and it didn't play favorites. But why is that concept in this particular comic? So you killed him. You aged him right before my eyes. You cheated him out of his entire life. There's no cheating in this game, Ghost Rider. Anything goes. This is the game of life and death, and those are the rules. Well, I don't like this game. You knew I didn't have a chance of winning the race. Not with you driving that superpowered chopper you've got. I didn't have the horses to keep up with you. Remember, this is a regular motorcycle at this point. If this was his Hellfire motorcycle, it's limited only by Ghost Rider's like will. So this is an actual machine. That was unfair, so I quit. You must continue. You have no choice. Which means if I don't race now, you snuff me right out, even though you know you've got me outgunned from the start. That's correct. So here's the next race. There's a little girl. And what is you'll be vigilant cross country where my extra power will matter little. Driving skills will be all that matters alone. Does that sound fair to you, or do you fear testing your cycle against me? No, that's all right. So there's a little girl, and they're going to drive off-road because she's just a little girl. My God. Because God has nothing to do with this, Blaze. This is a game of life and death alone. And I don't know. I got like chills when I read that as a little kid. You know, oh man. So here we go. God has chosen not to interfere in my little sports. You're on your own, Ghost Rider. There will be no help. Go. And I like this. The headlights, you know, we're looking at them as the lights get brighter and brighter. So cool. So cool. And look at that. Tell me, you can't hear Meatloaf singing Bad Out of Hell in the background while you're looking at that picture. The sirens are screaming and the fires are howling. Look at that. That is just awesome. The smoke trail, jumping over canyons. And look at this panel. You could just, even though he's a skull, you could kind of see he always looks sinister to me, but he has a look, because you cheated me again. There's the trail ahead of us, smoothing out. He'll be able to go full out again and leave me eating dust. He must have known about this. And there's the little girl. She's so young. No, he's going, wait, there's still a chance. So what does Ghost Rider do? I'll leave you in suspense while we check out Captain America, the mighty Marvel flying shield. We've seen this particular ad before, so I'm not going to go too crazy. But let's look at the Ghost Riders. You know, let's look at the letters page. Digby Russell. EM. Okay, so I don't know any of those. And here's Captain America, the Flame and the Fury. Yeah, at this point I was collecting almost everything by Marvel, except for Iron Man and Conan. I never liked, to be honest, I never really liked Iron Man until the Iron Man movie came out. Robert Downey Jr. made me an Iron Man fan. Here we go. The Coneheads. Farrah Fawcett. Giant Lad. That's Cheryl Ladd. Miss Anton. She's married to Dudley Moore, or at least she was. Dudley Moore, you lucky son of a gun. Miss Carter, that's Wonder Woman, Linda Carter. And then there's Kiss, the Kiss collage. Christy McNichols and her brother. The 70s were weird, guys. Weird and fun. So here he is. He knows what to do. He's going off-road, and he's up and over. Hey, Death Rider, up here. And he jumps, and he gets on the ground. Remember, he's a stunt rider, and apparently Death Rider, I don't know enough about motorcycles, but apparently Death Rider has a more straightforward, more conventional bike where it's just speed, over straight plains. So he used his skills and abilities to the best of his advantage. Up and over, look at that. That is so cool. And then he jumps and saves the girl. Back off, Rider. You'll not have this child. Look at him, threatening and menacing. No need for any juvenile displays of power, Ghost Rider. You win this round. You've no time to celebrate your victory, for our final contest must begin immediately. So gather up your cycle, let's be about our business. Lord, I built the old skull cycle to take a beating, but never expected it to bounce all over the landscape like I did. It better start again. I don't think I'd like forfeiting this race because of mechanical failure, because I suspect the final prize is me. And keep in mind, Johnny Blaze's costume. I was about to say Johnny Costume. Johnny Blaze's costume is like a leather stunt rider. So the little girl makes her to her parents. He gets on his bike. It starts. And of course, there is no stranger's life involved in this contest. We now race for your life. The finishing point will be that distant mountain peak. If you reach it without me touching you, I shall allow you to live. Well, that's just great. Hey, Ryder, I've had it with you in your game. You could eat hellfire. Look at that. Boom. Just blast them. You know, it doesn't matter like what version or iteration of Ghost Rider, the Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider. He always had the hellfire ability. That was just his. And originally it was just fire. You know, they didn't really say anything special about it, even though they called it hellfire. And then later on, it had like this carryover ability to like drain your soul, kind of like a Dementor. It drained you and made you lesser. So, you know, whatever. And of course that doesn't work. Poor deluded Ghost Rider thinking your hellfire could stop me. I told you I was beyond the power of heaven or hell, for I am death and can destroy but never be destroyed. No! So flee for all you're worth, Johnny Blaze. Death is coming from you, and death never loses. Look at that. That should be a sticker or something like that. Just put that on your binder. Look, that is just so cool. And here they go. Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. You know, they're going over scary terrain. Power Man and Iron Fist. That's Luke Cage for those of you who've seen the Netflix show. And that's Iron Fist, you know, again, well, you could read it, but it doesn't say Luke Cage. Howard the Duck, the Iron Duck. To battle Dr. Bong. Oh, let's see. Puts himself in the picture. Spider-Man, so here he is, my spider sense. So he's taking pictures of people and immobilizing them and robbing them. And Spider-Man is frozen, so he goes to rob Spider-Man. And he finds Twinkies. And he gets distracted by Twinkies, which any normal human would get distracted by Twinkies. And then Spider-Man defeats him. This is a properly done story. 10 out of 10. Twinkies are the best. Fruit pies are horrible. So here they're jumping and doing all this stuff. And death is always behind them. Metaphor for life, right? You could do all you can, but sooner or later death will catch up to you. And jumping over this, jumping over that. He cheated. Of course he said himself anything goes. Or how did he cheat? He's cheated and he's bullied me from the beginning. Cheated. Of course he said anything goes. Why not? It's the game of life and death. Lord, he's almost reached me. I would never do this to no regular biker, but this ain't no normal dude I'm up against. So he kicks his tire. What? So here goes anything. Unfair. Unfair. It's over. It's for now. Yes, but only for now. In that dim, dark past, John Blaze knew that one day, one form or another, death would continue to dog his tricks. So here on, Ghost Rider does not dwell long on that knowledge. And this, you know, brings us back to the present with his actual flame motorcycle. A demon rides in Denver. And so I got 2 Ghost Rider comics, the one before this and this one, and it took me years, I'm not even exaggerating, before I could find other Ghost Riders. I don't know why it was so hard to find, and I guess that made me want them all the more, you know, the forbidden fruit syndrome. So I really wanted Ghost Rider. So I bought a couple of collections on eBay and back issues at comic book stores. So for I don't know how it happened, but now I pretty much have 3 full sets of Ghost Rider this volume. So I guess I'll put a couple of issues on eBay because I'm running out of room in my comic book room. But this is wonderful, so good. You know, I pretty much said all my thoughts about Ghost Rider in the other video, but I knew that issue 34 and issue 35 were 2 of the comics that I had in mind when I came up with the idea for this YouTube channel. So, you know, it's still comics that are important to me, and then now I'm organizing my collection again, and I'm finding other stuff that's I have a stack right over here to my right of other videos, of other comics to make videos for. So I hope you enjoyed this. I love this issue. It's so much fun, so dark, so gloomy, so atmospheric. This would make if they make a Ghost Rider movie, Witness or a Ghost Rider TV show, this would be just, I could only imagine how good this would look on TV, how scary it would look. But there you go. That's Ghost Rider issue 35, 1979. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Man, it is hot today.